had to pull over for this one. Got a question for you today. Why does the government need to spy on you to protect you? Are you a threat to yourself? Are you a threat to the American people? Well, 9th District U.S. Representative Doug Collins seems to think that you are. That's because in December, Representative Collins voted for H.R. 4861, the Intelligence Authorization Act for 2015. Now, Section 309 of that bill, since made law, is entitled Procedures for the Retention of Incidentally Acquired Communication. In that section, the term covered communication means any non-public, that means private, telephone or electronic communication acquired without the consent of a person who is a party to the communication, including communications in online storage. So we're talking about email, we're talking about texts, we're talking about internet searches, online backup, we're talking about any data collected without the consent of the communicating party involved. Any data collected without your consent. And so obviously Section 309 anticipates, at least to some extent, a dragnet of acquired communications. How do we know that it's a dragnet? Because these are all communications collected incidentally in due course of these procedures. In Section 309, in paragraph 1, the law gives the intelligence community a limited startup period for certain procedures to be adopted regarding the dragnet of these communications. It says, not later than 2 years after the date of the enactment of this law, each head of an element of the intelligence community shall adopt procedures approved by the Attorney General that ensure compliance not with the U.S. Constitution, but merely with the requirements of paragraph 3. I threw in the part about the U.S. Constitution. I thought it was pertinent. So what are we even talking about here? Paragraph 3 will tell us that we're talking about the covered electronic communications for which I just read you the definition. That's your communications without your consent. That paragraph states the procedures required by paragraph 1 shall apply to any intelligence collection activity that is reasonably anticipated to result in the acquisition of covered communication, which, as we just read, are your private communications, and shall permit, in other words, authorize, the acquisition, retention, and dissemination of covered communications to or from a United States person as defined as a U.S. citizen or alien legally in the U.S., subject only, I'm using the word only, to the limitation that a covered communication shall not be retained in excess of 5 years. So this doesn't even cover people who are here in our country illegally. This is just you and me and all the other people who are here legally, and that's it. So we asked Representative Collins to respond to that. We asked him a question concerning this, and he said there have been rumors that Section 309 of H.R. 4681, the fiscal year 2015 Intelligence Authorization Act, permits the government to acquire, retain, disseminate non-public electronic communications to or from U.S. citizens. A rumor? According to Representative Collins, that is simply not true. Section 309 provides no authority to collect any communications whatsoever. In fact, Section 309 protects privacy by requiring the federal government to adopt procedures to destroy communications collected outside of the U.S. after 5 years, unless those communications relate to terrorists and several other things that I'm not even going to go into. He writes, I stand by my support of this bill. I'm sure my conservative counterparts in the Senate who allowed this legislation to pass by voice vote do as well. Now, we read the bill. There's nothing in there about foreign communications. No, these are domestic communications. These are my communications, your mom, your son, your daughter, your friends. They all are covered communications by this bill. So obviously, if we're going to take Representative Collins at his word, he does not understand what these provisions mean. That Representative Collins is voting on federal legislation that he does not understand, especially when that legislation authorizes the government to spy on, collect, retain, and disseminate private communications of the very people who put him here in office, meaning your communications. That should scare the daylights out of you. It does me. And if Representative Collins does not understand what these provisions mean, then is he qualified to be your representative? And if he does understand what they mean, isn't that even more scary?